Hey everybody, coming to you from the Henzo Gracie PA Academy. As I said earlier, going to jump on here for a little bit and talk about a couple different things. Today, I want to talk a little bit about weapons and how they fall into unarmed or combatives type training. Unfortunately, you get a lot of different types of people. Some people are quote unquote gun guys who, go to the gun store and buy a gun, and maybe they train with it, maybe they don't. But in many cases, they think that that gun is going to solve all their problems. So they neglect the physical training, they neglect the combatives training, the grappling, the striking, all that other stuff. Obviously, we don't want to be those guys. Okay. And then you've got the other category, which is the MMA, the jiu-jitsu, the self-defense guys. They go out and they train, they're grappling, they're striking, but they don't ever think about what happens if the person I'm grappling or striking with has weapons, specifically knives and guns, which are some of the more common weapons that people carry with them on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to talk a little bit about integrating your concealed carry, whether you carry a firearm or a knife, with your defensive tactics, with your unarmed training. So if you're an MMA guy who trains jiu-jitsu, trains Muay Thai, trains boxing, but you've never thought about the possibility of someone that you're having an issue with in the real world brandishing a weapon, it's something to think about. And it's something that we do here. It's something that we've integrated into the training, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So when we talk about weapons, we've got three different types of categories, basically. You've got projectile, which essentially are firearms. You've got impact, which is anything you could hit someone with, so a stick, a chair, any type of anything that you can use to hit someone with. And then the third category is edged. So when we think about edged, traditionally we think about knives, but there could also be improvised edge weapons such as glass, bottles, pens, anything sharp, anything you could cut or puncture or poke or penetrate another human being with. Those are the three categories. Generally speaking, a lot of the more common things you're going to see people carrying are knives and guns. Specifically, people that are in the self-defense community. Concealed carry is popular here in Pennsylvania, so you've got a lot of people that have concealed carry permits that are carrying guns. Many of those people also carry knives. And then, as far as the criminal element is concerned, obviously they're not concerned with the registration, with the issuance of licenses, so on and so forth. But those are still things that you're going to see. When I worked in law enforcement, we took a lot of guns off of a lot of people that we came in contact with, and it was also not uncommon at all to find people armed with some type of an edge weapon. Everything from kitchen knives to ice picks to ground down screwdrivers, things like that. So thanks, Ryan, appreciate that. And guys, if you have any questions, please by all means fire away. But for the most part, we're going to be talking about weapons and integrating weapons with your concealed carry. So those are the three categories, okay? And if you already train in jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or boxing or any of the more well-known and well-respected arts that traditionally make up mixed martial arts, or what you see in like UFC, you're ahead of the game. Integrating weapons into your game is not as difficult as you might think. If you have zero experience in grappling or zero striking, you're essentially starting from the beginning, so it might be a little bit more work for you. But let me just see, I made a couple notes I want to make sure that I hit here. So offensively, if you're going to carry these tools, if you're going to carry a firearm, an edge weapon on you, offensively, you want to be thinking about positioning them in a manner that they're accessible and they're also retainable. Okay, so if you're going to carry a weapon, it can be a liability or it can be an asset. If the weapon is positioned in a way that is easy for other people to get to it, obviously it's a liability. If it's positioned in a way that's difficult for you to get to it in a time of need, that could also be a liability. My general rule of thumb with carrying any weapons, whether it be edged or firearms, is waist high uniformity. So I like everything to be at waist height, and the reason for that is that your waist generally does not move in relation to the rest of your body. In other words, I can be on the ground, I can be in a position of disadvantage, and I can still access my waistline. If I'm in the fetal position, if I'm in the turtle position, if I'm getting my ass handed to me on the ground, I can still get to my waistline. And specifically, the front part of my waistline. So I like to think from the pocket seams forward, or if you look at your body as a clock with your belt buckle being 12 o'clock, from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. I want to keep all my vital, fighting, life-saving tools from the hips forward, from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock forward, or from the pocket seams forward if you think about a pair of jeans. That's a good start. That's where you want to have your stuff. From there, you can really refine it, make sure that you're carrying with a good quality holster. When carrying firearms, carry in either a Filster Classic or a Eidolon from Raven Concealment. In the appendix position, I think they're both great options for that. There's plenty of other options out there. High quality, Kydex or injection molded plastic would be my recommendation for firearms. Leather, not so much. Maybe if it's a really good quality leather, but leather has a tendency to lose its shape over time, and that can become dangerous with holstering and unholstering. Kydex, on the other hand, generally will last forever, and it's going to be specifically molded to the gun that you're carrying. So none of these Uncle Mike's one-size-fits-all jobs. You want to go out and invest in a good quality holster. It's going to protect your weapon. It's going to keep it safe. It's going to keep you having from any type of accidental or negligent discharge during the holstering or unholstering. So that would be my recommendation there. If you're going to carry a knife, obviously fixed blade knives are more accessible or more easily accessible than folders. Excuse me. You just have to check your local laws. In some states, fixed blade knives are not permissible. So that's something to think about. Look into your local laws and make sure that whatever you're carrying is in compliance with the laws, so you don't have any issues there. But fixed blade knives are generally easier to get out. They're easier to get into play. I think Tom Kyer once said that a folder is a broken fixed blade, right? So not only is it less sturdy and it has a potential point of breakage at the folding mechanism, but it's just a little bit more difficult to get it out and in play. That being said, there are certain folders that are more accessible or more easily accessible than others. I'm a fan of some of the wave designs, either from Emerson or from people that he's leased the wave to. I believe he has a patent on the wave. But like Zero Tolerance makes some knives that have the wave on them. Spyderco makes a couple variants of knives with the wave on them. And the wave is basically just a small hook that catches on your pocket and allows the blade to open as you're drawing it from the pocket. So that gets the knife out and gets it in play a little bit faster. It's more gross motor than fine motor, trying to rotate it around in your hand and get to an opening mechanism. So that's one option. Another option is you've got thumb discs and thumb studs and thumb holes and flippers and all different types of opening mechanisms. My recommendation would be to go somewhere where you can get your hands on a couple different types of knives and see what feels comfortable for you. Knives, there's a lot of variety there in terms of getting what you want. Tip up, tip down, left side, right side carry, in regard to being in your pocket and working with the pocket clip. I like to have knives that are versatile, that can fulfill multiple roles, so I can use it as a utility implement as well as a defensive tool if the need should arise. I also like knives that can be mounted in different orientations, tip up, tip down, left side or right side. You may think that you like to carry tip down, for example, and maybe you go to a course and somebody sheds some light onto something and they show you the value of carrying tip up, or vice versa. That way you can come home and you can just switch the knife orientation and practice in that configuration rather than have to go out and buy another new piece of equipment. So I think there's value in that. Not all knives are made that way. Some knives, specifically some of the Emerson type designs or the collaborations between Emerson and Kershaw or Emerson and ZT, are only going to be available in tip up because they're made to be utilized with the wave. But those are just some things to think about. I'm not going to get too crazy in depth in the knives, but if you have a knife, think about those things. Think about the positioning. Think about the orientation, and what you plan on doing with it in terms of a defensive situation. And make sure you carry it in a way that it's not only accessible, but it's also retainable. All right. Ideally, I would, in a perfect world, like to have a fixed blade knife that's accessible with either hand, and that way, if one hand is trapped or I can't get to it, I can get to it with the other. And you would train for it in that way. You would train for using it in different configurations, so different grips. Forward grip, where the majority of the knife is coming out the top. Reverse grip, where the majority of the knife is coming out the bottom. And then there's several different specific grips within those two orientations. But however you're going to carry it, make sure you train with it that way. If you can get a knife that they make an actual trainer of, that would be my recommendation. Spyderco has several knives that they make a non-sharpened exact replica training blade. So for example, one of the knives that I have is a Spyderco Pakal. They make a Spyderco Pakal trainer. It's red, it's made out of the exact same materials, it's red in color, and the blade is not sharpened. So you can use that to practice your draws, you can use that to practice all the work that you're going to do with the knife once it's out. You do want to be careful with some of the aluminum trainers, because if you're going to actually be stabbing or working with a partner, you can still hurt somebody with those aluminum trainers. So you want to be careful about that. For more aggressive training, where you're actually going to be working, defending against a knife attack, or even offensively trying to get your knife in play and work it, I like to use knock knives, NOK. They're relatively inexpensive. They're about $30 plus or minus per knife, and you can be pretty aggressive with those. You can really try to penetrate and poke and stab at your buddy without really running the risk of too much serious damage. You want to be careful going to the eyes or the face, obviously, but those are great. So those are what I use, and those are what we use in class here at the Academy for my class, for the Krav Maga self-defense class, and that would be my recommendation to you. So if we're going to carry weapons, waist-high uniformity for me, from the pocket seams forward, so from 3 to 6 o'clock, or from 3 to 9 o'clock rather, with your belt buckle being 12 o'clock. Carry them in a good quality holster. Kydex is my preferred material, Kydex or injection molded plastic. If you're going to carry a knife, again, fixed blade over a folder where it's legally permissible. If it's not, and you're going to use a folder, make sure it's one that you can get out and you can get it into play quickly. Practice that stuff, work that stuff. Working accessing your knife is very much like working accessing your pistol. If you can't get it out and get it in play quickly, it's probably not of any use to you. So that's something that you want to drill over and over again if you intend on using that knife for a defensive application. In addition to those things, you want to make sure you have a good quality belt to support all of your carry material. Personally, I am very fond of the Aries Gear Aegis belt. It's a double thick scuba webbing that's not too thick, but just thick enough that if you were to try to crush the belt from top to bottom, you would not be able to do that. And I could literally load that belt up with everything I carried when I was in law enforcement, and it's still not going to go anywhere. But it looks casual. You can wear it with a suit. Mine is all black with a black buckle. It doesn't look like anything spectacular. You can wear it with jeans. You can wear it with a suit. But it's going to support the gear that you're carrying. If you're going to be carrying things like a firearm and a spare magazine and a knife and medical stuff and all this other stuff that people get into, you're going to need a good quality belt. You don't want to put a heavy holster, a heavy gun, and all the other stuff on a Walmart belt. It's just not going to work out very well. You're going to run into some problems. You may even get into some issues where you go to draw the weapon and the entire holster comes out. This is a cert training pistol and a Filster holster, but the entire holster comes out as opposed to just the gun coming out and the holster staying behind as it is intended to be. So these are some things to think about. These are some things that a lot of people don't think about when they get into the concealed carry lifestyle. And even law enforcement officers, I know a lot of law enforcement officers that carry on duty in the configuration that they're issued, and off duty they don't